A scientist once embarked on a quest to uncover the nature of the self within the human brain. He meticulously mapped neurons, traced electrical signals, and examined consciousness under a microscope. Yet, the deeper he delved, the more something peculiar became apparent. He could not locate the singular eye that perceives all experiences. There was no definitive spot where the observer, the thinker, or the feeler resided. Instead, it resembled pursuing a shadow, present everywhere and yet nowhere at the same time. Now, pause and consider this for a moment. If you close your eyes and ask, "Who am I?" Who is posing that question, and who is truly hearing it? We instinctively assume that we are the entity generating our thoughts, the actor behind our actions, the one making all our choices. But what if the very act of observation reveals that you are far more expansive than your mind has led you to believe? Throughout the annals of history, countless individuals have dedicated their lives to answering this profound question. Some journeyed to remote mountaintops, others sat in profound silence for years, while still others turned to philosophy, methodically dissecting human nature piece by piece. Yet, regardless of the method chosen, the answer invariably pointed to something entirely unexpected. The self is not simply what we conventionally imagine it to be. You were never confined merely to your name. You were never limited solely to your memories. You were never just the transient emotions that flow through you. The mind strives to comprehend itself by latching onto an identity. It insists that you are this body, this personality, this series of experiences. But where is the tangible evidence? When you close your eyes, does this identity assume a physical form, or is it nothing more than a mere collection of abstract ideas? Most individuals journey through their entire lives without ever questioning this assumption. They accept that the inner voice they hear is their very self, oblivious to the fact that this voice is in constant flux. The thoughts you possessed 5 years ago differ from those you harbor today, and the emotions you feel in the present moment will not persist forever. So, if every facet within you is fleeting, then what is the singular element that has remained constant throughout your entire life? It is at this juncture that something profound occurs when you start to observe your thoughts rather than identifying with them. A shift happens, and you come to realize that you are not merely the thinker, but rather the one silently witnessing the unfolding of these thoughts. Imagine walking into a crowded room filled with people arguing, each person trying to pull you into their conversation and demanding your attention. This is exactly what happens in your mind. One thought tells you to be anxious about the future, another tells you to regret the past, and another convinces you that you are not enough. But what if you simply stepped back? What if you stopped engaging with every thought and just watched? This is the secret that almost no one realizes. Your mind creates endless problems because it needs something to focus on. It thrives on questions, doubts, and anxieties, keeping you distracted from seeing its own illusion. Yet the moment you stop playing its game, you begin to experience something rare: silence, and in that silence, the illusion of you begins to dissolve. In simpler words, by simply observing, without reacting, you discover a peaceful clarity that many have never noticed. Try this. Sit in a quiet place and observe your thoughts without reacting. At first, the mind will resist. It will flood you with distractions, memories, worries, and doubts. But if you wait, if you truly just watch, you'll start to notice something incredible. The thoughts come and go, but you remain. You are the awareness behind them. The moment you see this, your relationship with your mind changes. The thoughts no longer have power over you. The emotion no longer dictates your identity. And the endless mental chatter no longer feels like a prison because you now recognize that you were never inside it to begin with. This is the shift that changes everything. When this realization sinks in, life itself starts to feel different. You no longer take every thought so seriously. You no longer react to every emotion, as if it defines you, and you no longer fear silence because you understand that it is not empty, it is full of something greater. Once you experience this, you cannot unsee it. It's like stepping out of a dream and realizing you were asleep the entire time. And the best part is, you don't need to do anything to achieve this. You don't need to meditate for years, and you don't need to chase after enlightenment. Are you really in control? Happens when you begin to observe your thoughts rather than identify with them. Something shifts, and you realize that you are not just the thinker. You are the one watching. The thoughts happen. Imagine walking into a crowded room, a space filled with people arguing. Each person is trying to pull you into their conversation and demanding your attention. This is exactly what happens in your mind. One thought tells you to be anxious about the future, another tells you to regret the past, and another convinces you that you are not enough. But what if you simply stepped back? What if you stopped engaging with every thought and just watched? This is the secret that almost no one realizes. Your mind creates endless problems because it needs something to focus on, it thrives on. Questions, doubts, and anxieties, keeping you distracted from seeing its own illusion. But the moment you stop playing its game, you begin to experience something rare, silence. And in that silence, the illusion of you begins to dissolve. Try this. Sit in a quiet place and observe your thoughts without reacting. At first, the mind will resist. It will flood you with distractions, memories, worries, and doubts. But if you wait, if you truly just watch, you'll start to notice something incredible. The thoughts come and go, but you remain. You are the awareness behind them. The moment you see this, your relationship with your mind changes. The thoughts no longer have power over you. The emotion no longer dictates your identity, and the endless mental chatter no longer feels like a prison because you now recognize that you were never inside it to begin with. This is the shift that changes everything. When this realization sinks in, life itself starts to feel different. You no longer take every thought so seriously. You no longer react to every emotion as if it defines you, and you no longer fear silence because you understand that it is not empty, it is full of something greater. Once you experience this, you cannot unsee it. It's like stepping out of a dream and realizing you were asleep the entire time. And the best part is, you don't need to do anything to achieve this. You don't need to meditate for years, and you don't need to chase after enlightenment. Where does the self begin and end? All you need to do is watch, because once you start watching, you'll realize you were never the thoughts to begin with. In the late 19th century, a brilliant scientist named Santiago Ramon Ajal was obsessed with understanding the brain. He dedicated his life to mapping neurons, believing that if he could trace every connection, he would find the seat of consciousness, the self hidden somewhere inside the mind. But no matter how deep he went, there was no core, no center, no final you to be found. This isn't just a scientific mystery. It's something every ancient wisdom tradition has hinted at for centuries. The idea that we are a fixed self is an illusion so deeply ingrained that most people never even think to question it. Imagine two people sitting in a cafe, both drinking coffee and both experiencing the same moment. One is completely lost in thought, regretting something they said earlier, worrying about the future, playing old memories on repeat, while the other simply watches the taste of coffee, the warmth of the sun, the quiet hum of people talking. In the background, they are in the same place at the same time, but living in completely different realities. One is trapped inside their mind, the other is just here. So the real question isn't who the observer is, it's what happens when you stop identifying with the mind altogether. And this is where we can go even deeper. Think about dreams. When you're inside a dream, everything feels real. You don't question the logic, the people, the strange places. But the moment you wake up, you realize it was all a projection of the mind. What if waking life works in the same way? What if the thoughts, the self-doubts, the constant stream of mental noise are just another dream, one you haven't woken up from yet. And here's where it gets even stranger. Neuroscientists have tried to pinpoint the observer in the brain, the part that sees experience rather than just reacting to it. But every time they look, they find nothing. The observer isn't something you can hold, locate, or measure, because it's not a thing, it's an awareness. This is why great minds across history have wrestled with this realization. The Stoics spoke about the ability to step back and observe life objectively, to not be the emotion, but the one watching the emotion pass. How identity is just another thought. Through Einstein questioned the very fabric of time and space, suggesting that the way we experience reality is not how it actually is, and modern psychology is catching up with research showing that the more you watch your thoughts rather than get lost in them, the less stress and anxiety control you. But let's make this even more practical. Try this right now for just 10 seconds. Stop, close your eyes, and observe your thoughts, not as yours, but as something appearing in front of you. Ask yourself, who is watching? Who is aware of the thoughts happening? The more you sit with this, the more unsettling and liberating it becomes, because the truth is, there is nothing to find. There was never a fixed you hidden beneath it all. The thoughts, the identity, the opinions, the anxieties, they all come and go. The only thing that has always remained is the silent awareness behind it all. This is why so many people resist this realization. It shakes the entire foundation of what we believe to be true. It means that the thing we've spent our entire lives trying to control, our mind, was never really us. And when you deeply see this, the need to hold on disappears. The need to prove something disappears. The endless war against yourself stops because, for the first time, you're not looking through the mind. You're looking at it, and that changes everything. Throughout history, cultures across the world have attempted to articulate this deep truth, the idea that the self we believe to be so real is in fact an illusion. But the way they express it varies in fascinating ways. In ancient Hindu philosophy, particularly at Vedanta, they describe it as Maya, the grand illusion. The idea is that we live inside a mental projection, mistaking what we see for what is real. They teach that there is no individual self, only Brahman, the infinite consciousness that pervades everything. The separation we perceive is a mirage, like waves thinking they are separate from the ocean. Buddhism takes a slightly different approach. The Buddha never spoke of a true self at all. Instead, he emphasized anatta, the concept of no self. He pointed out that everything we take ourselves to be, our thoughts, our emotions, even our sense of being an observer, is just a constantly shifting collection of experiences. There is no permanent I anywhere to be. Found just a stream of sensations, perceptions, and awareness arising and passing away. Then you have Taoism, which approaches this from a completely different angle. The Taoists don't focus on proving the self doesn't exist. Instead, they encourage people to stop grasping for a fixed identity altogether. The famous phrase, "the toe that can be named is not the true toe," suggests that any attempt to define yourself, to put yourself into a conceptual box, is already a step away from reality. Instead, they embrace flow, non-resistance, and effortless action, allowing life to unfold naturally without the interference of the mind, trying to hold on to a false sense of control. Even in Western philosophy, this idea shows up. The Greek Stoics often spoke about detachment from the ego, recognizing that most of our suffering comes from identifying too strongly with temporary emotions and desires. They believe that freedom comes from seeing yourself as part of something larger, not an isolated individual, but a participant in the grand order of nature. What's fascinating is that despite these different expressions, the underlying truth remains the same. The belief in a solid, separate self is the greatest illusion of all. Let's look at how language itself reinforces this illusion. We don't realize it, But the very way we use words and structure our sentences is built on separation and identification. Every sentence in most languages is structured around a subject and an object, a doer and a thing being done. For example, we say, "I am thinking," but what if thinking is just happening? The structure of our language forces us to put an I in front of it, as if there is a thinker separate from the thought itself. Our language locks us into the illusion that we are the owner of these experiences, that they belong to us, that we are in control. In some ancient languages and indigenous cultures, the way they speak does not assume a separate self the way modern languages do. Instead of "I am walking," they might say something closer to "walking is happening." Instead of "I see the sky," they might express it in a way that acknowledges the connection, that the sky is seen. This may seem like a small detail, but words shape thought, and thought in turn shapes our perception of reality. What happens when you let go? A real-world experiment you can do to see this illusion for yourself. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and now just watch your thoughts as they come and go without labeling, without analyzing. Just observe. Who is watching? Where is the observer? Do thoughts belong to you, or do they simply appear out of nowhere? The longer you sit, the more you'll realize there is no thinker behind the thoughts. Thoughts just arise. Awareness is there, watching them. And in that moment, something profound happens. You see through the illusion. The mind will try to pull you back in, try to claim ownership, but once you've glimpsed this reality, you can never unsee it. The observer is observed, and the illusion starts to crumble.